Are you ready to learn? Because my super experienced guests are ready to share some really valuable information. Make sure and listen all the way to the end to get help and support. So let's start with the best audio experience.
Hello guys, welcome to our show. Today we discuss about lead generation for B2B, and I'm so excited to discuss this topic with Gudema. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Anatoly?
I'm doing great, especially when you mentioned that you can surprise, including me. I love learning something new, so I'm so excited to learn more about that. I know you help B2B startups and growth stage companies grow by developing and implementing strategic marketing programs to drive business results. Yeah, so excited about that. Before we start, tell more about yourself, experience, background, and why you decided to share with us about lead generation for B2B.
Thanks, Anatoly. So I work with companies as a fractional CMO, B2B companies as fractional CMO and marketing strategist. And I'm also put out a book, Bullseye Marketing, which has gotten a good reception. It was named one of the best marketing plan books of all time. And it has led to me being hired to work as a ghostwriter on the marketing or business books of some other people. So that's something that I work on as well. So I have about 30 years of marketing experience, and I have worked with companies from very large tech companies like IBM to MIT startups and many others.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell what is the main difference when you cooperate with big companies like IBM or any others compared to SMB or small companies that are looking for ways to grow their business? What kind of benefits IBM wanna get? Just tell more about cooperating in the right way with big companies.
Well, when you're doing marketing for a big company, of course, you're a very small part of a very, very big machine. And so they have very strong brand standards. They have a lot of practices that they've been doing for a long time. And you're kind of helping them do new things, but at the same time kind of fitting into how that whole thing is. And so you're trying to make small turns in a very big ship. Whereas when you're working with an SMB, first of all, you're typically working closely with the CEO or owner. And in my case, I may be the first marketing lead that they've ever had, the first head of marketing they've ever had. So I'm developing a whole marketing strategy and plan, looking at their whole MarTech stack, their brand. Usually their website needs some substantial overhaul. And then we launch a whole series of both branding and lead generation programs that involve email, digital advertising, lots of other channels, and do I typically develop a multi-channel approach that works across, say, 5 or 6 channels at least at the same time. And that's where you get the biggest bang. So it's usually a much more strategic role that I'm in the small and mid-sized companies.
Nice, love it. Okay, you mentioned about multi-channel approach. Can you tell how to find channels that will provide results? Because I see when companies, especially when they launch a new product, they try to cover a few channels with limited resources. Sometimes it's not a good idea, especially when you share limited resources. You can be like jack of all trades, master of none. Can you tell how to know which channels will provide results, how to find them, and how to know what kind of budget to share to specific channel?
Well, that comes down to knowing your customer. And so you have to understand where your customer is. So some customers, for example, will be on LinkedIn. But in other industries, even in B2B, there are some industries where the people are just not hanging out on LinkedIn or on social media in general. And so those don't become useful. email, generally, if a person hasn't subscribed to a list, hasn't opted into a list, isn't very effective. So you have to find other ways to get in front of them, and that may be trade associations. It may be, I'm usually doing very, very tightly focused marketing. My customers, my clients may be trying to reach a market of several hundred to several thousand companies in the first year that we're working on. We're not trying to reach 1 million companies, or 5 million companies. And so we can be very highly targeted on just those people through, like I said, social media ads, other types of ads. Even if an email list isn't good for emails, it can be good for targeting ads through programmatic ad platforms and others, using remarketing and using some other tools. But it really comes down, something that will work in one industry won't work at all in another. And sometimes you learn that, the hard way, and sometimes you know it from beginning, because it's just something that is not as you research. The most important thing, of course, is to talk to the customers. And so as you're talking to the customers, you find out that they're not actually on those channels, then you have to devise programs that reach them where they are.
Okay, let's talk about how to learn customers, because especially when you set up paid ads that are expensive, and it's better to get the right data about customers on LinkedIn as well, because cost per click is high. Can you tell how to find the right customers, learn them? Just tell more about getting data and learning customers.
Well, one of the important things to understand about B2B, and it's true for B2C too, largely, unless you're selling something that people use every day, like food, 95% of your customers aren't looking to buy right now. And this is really important to understand. So, when you talk about lead generation, that's a very, very small part of the market that's actually looking to buy right now. The rest of the market either isn't interested in what you're selling, or they're interested in it and they're just not buying it right now. They may have an established vendor that they're very happy with, and they're not going to change. They've got 20 priorities and you're not in the 20, or they've got 5 priorities and you're not in the 5. So you can reach out to them, you can send your cold emails, you can try to call them, but it's like, no, we're not buying this. It's not in our budget. I'm not taking time because I got a lot of other things. So this is why it's so important to be what I was saying before about having the right balance between lead generation and brand building, because 95% of your market isn't looking to buy right now. And so in addition to those lead generation programs to try to get to those 5%, you need to be building your brand and what's called mental availability, so that when they do decide they need to buy what you're selling, you're at the top of the list that they're going to be companies that they're going to be talking to. So for example, I had a marketing agency for 12 years, and we did work with, like I said, IBM, the Boston Globe, other big tech companies. And then we pivoted and became a SaaS agency. And we had our own platform, which was a content management system. And we focused on the small colleges and private schools education market. Well, after I sold that, I was the VP of business development at another agency. And the first call I got was a guy who said, he was calling in, he was saying, I need to talk to the, sales guy. And I said, okay, you're talking to him. He said, well, I've been following you for 3 years. I've seen your CEO speak. I've been reading your blog. I really like what you have to say. we're finally ready now, and we need your services. So that's what you need. You need to be top of mind when that 95% of the market is ready to buy, because in many cases, and you would be shocked at this, Anatoly, how few vendors they will look at. The majority of the time, they will only look at one company, maybe two, before they buy. And so, for example, I was doing work with a company which is a tech analyst firm called the Real Story Group. And they did a study a few years ago where they surveyed their customers of very large digital asset management systems. So this is software that large companies use to organize all their digital assets, like, images and videos and white papers and, ebooks and all these sorts of things. These are expensive systems. These are not systems that small companies buy. So their customers who are buying these digital asset management systems, or DAMs as they're called, referred to, are big companies. And yet when they surveyed their customers and asked them how they went through their buying process, the majority only talked to one vendor when buying these very expensive critical systems. And so they didn't have comparative reviews, and they didn't have bake-offs between two companies. And I saw, when I was doing some work for them, an interview. One of the companies I did an analysis for is a company called Acton, and they compete with HubSpot. They have a CRM and marketing automation program, that kind of marketing software. And the CEO of that company said most of their sales, the customer only looks at Acton and they buy it because they've heard of Acton, someone's referred them, and that's all it is. So that is the really critical marketing challenge. Of course, you want to spend time on your lead generation to try to get in front of that 5% that's buying now. But in fact, a lot of that 5% has already decided this is the one company I'm talking to. I don't even care if these other guys contact me at the right moment because I haven't heard of them before.
Yeah.
If you haven't built your brand, it doesn't matter. You're just an email. You're just like someone annoying them with a phone call, and they probably get 10 or 20 phone calls a day. I do. I get, all sorts of outreach from marketing people, lead gen people, and very little of it, that's a 1 or 2% game. So you got to, be building your brand and that mental availability so that when they do decide to buy, you are at the very top of their list. And so the problem that's happened in marketing, and it's because of this huge proliferation of MarTech platforms. Scott Brinker, I'm in Boston and Scott's in Boston and I know him. And about a dozen years ago, he put out his first marketing technology landscape. I don't know if you're familiar with that graphic.
No.
It's a graphic that shows all the different vendors in the MarTech space. And when he first put it out a dozen years ago, it had less than 1,000 companies in it. Well, now it has 10,000. So, that's who, if you're a MarTech company, and in every one of the 40 or 50 categories, there's dozens or hundreds of other companies. So you're not going to win by differentiating yourself in most cases, because the customer won't remember that. You're just one of 40 companies that's competing. The game is for them to remember you at all, for you to be distinctive and memorable. And so this is so the way that I compare this, Anatoly, is it's well known that exercise every day is great for your health, right? You look like a pretty fit guy. You look like someone who probably works out or runs or takes care of yourself. And if you exercise 30 minutes a day for 5 or 6 days a week, it's a huge, huge benefit for your health. but there's no one time. You can't say, oh, that run that I did last Tuesday, that's the run that made me healthy. No, it's doing it every day over and over again, and eating right, and taking care of yourself, getting sleep, drinking enough water. That's what makes you healthy. Now, on the other side, and that's similar to brand marketing. That's, it's a thing that you do every day, and you can't point to any one thing and say, that's the thing that made us famous. That's the thing that built mental availability. It's doing it all the time. Now, on the other hand, you've got lead generation, and lead generation is kind of like getting your COVID vaccine, or getting a stent if you have a heart attack, or getting, a cast for your arm if you break your arm. It's very important. It takes care of that problem. That problem could even be fatal if it wasn't taken care of. But it doesn't make you healthy in the long run. It just takes care of that immediate problem. And so that's like lead generation. So you got to do that every day, all day, brand building, to build your mental availability. And that's something that just, because there are these so many marketing software packages, and they all give you campaign metrics. They all say, oh, you spent some money here and you got this many leads. And people become obsessed with that short-term measurable result. But you have to remember that, not everything measurable is important, and not everything important is measurable.
Yeah.
And so the companies that are the biggest ones, and so studies have been done on this, and what you have to do generally is 50-50. Roughly half of your marketing should be on brand building, and half of your marketing should be on lead generation. And I'm sure
Yeah, I love this quote. That's why I decided to submit this video. Okay, go ahead.
Well, thank you. I want to thank the audience for that. So you got to keep up both. That's the important thing that you need to have going on, or because the brand building also helps your lead generation, but it doesn't work the other way around. So a lot of lead generation does not build your brand. It does not build mental availability, but a lot of brand building helps your lead generation because people know you. They trust you more. When your email or your call arrives, they've heard of you. Companies with strong brands can charge more. They can have bigger margins. They have bigger profits. If a customer has one unhappy experience with them, they won't leave them if they have a strong brand. If they have a weak brand, they're much more likely to leave them after just one bad experience. So all of these benefits come to you from the brand building but like I said, the way you build your brand and the way you generate leads are very different.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, it's called reciprocity rule. When you share value, help others, support them, and it creates the feeling guilt to give something back. So yeah, I love the strategy to create brand awareness. And you mentioned about consistency. When you do something every single day, can you tell about creating the right strategy of building brand awareness? What kind of content to create? How to help customers, because if customers are not ready to buy, but you can help them during their journey to know more about products that can help them decide their problems. So let's talk more about creating brand awareness.
Well, some of the things that you do will be helpful, like content marketing. And you'll put out blog posts and videos and ebooks and hold webinars and do things like you're doing here with this session right now. And those will be helpful to people. But that isn't the only way to build your brand and your mental availability. So you can, in general, two things to keep in mind. One is what's called share of voice. you need to build an excess share of voice. So, and that's when your voice in your industry is bigger than your market share. So in general, let's say you have 10% of market share. If you also have 10% of voice, all the marketing, all the advertising, all the promotion and events and blog posts and content and so forth, that's probably not going to grow your company. It'll keep it steady at that level, but your share of voice is about equal to your market share, and that doesn't move you. If your share of voice went down below your market share, you would be in danger of losing market share. But if you want to increase your market share, you need to increase your share of voice beyond what your market share is. And that can be done through ads, through podcasts, through webinars, through blog posts, through opt-in emails, events, social media, and so forth. So there's no one magic bullet. It's being everywhere, doing a lot of different things. And one of the key differences between the brand building and the lead generation is brand building tends to be emotion-based messages, which have people don't act on them in the short term, but they stick with them in their mind, in their brain. And so lead generation tends to be logical messages. Lead generation messages are things like 10% off, sign up for the webinar, download the ebook. But if you don't do it at that moment, you won't remember that, 2 minutes later. You're not thinking about that 2 minutes later. But you see a really great advertisement, whether it's on TV or video on the internet, or it may even be print or, some sort of static thing like that. And there have been great print ads. You remember them. They stick with you. And so, you ask people, there's probably advertisements you remember from being a kid.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, and there's the things that Americans would, if you said, "Oh, what's an ad you remember from being a kid?" Oh yeah, I remember, this ad for hot dogs, or this ad that they had for toilet paper, or whatever. It would be a consumer product. It wouldn't be B2B because they wouldn't have been seeing B2B things as a kid. But they never would remember a lead generation ad they saw as a kid, because it has no creative to it. It has no humor. It has no emotion. It has no hook that sticks with the mind. And that's the difference. And that's why all of those lead generation activities don't build your brand, but those branding activities do produce a better foundation for your lead gen marketing.
Yeah, love it. Let's talk about call to action. For example, if I create brand awareness, help my audience, future customers, how to submit the right call to action to them to generate more leads, to sell actually products, because many companies can have traffic on their blogs, but I see two approaches. The first approach, when they ignore to submit call to action, so people can read, consume content, and forget about this brand. The second approach, when companies can oversell, to submit call to action many times everywhere, it's annoying as well. So tell how to find the balance of submitting call to action, to actually sell products.
Well, there's so many things that go into that. And again, it's going to be totally different depending on the industry. But if you have, you have calls, you have to have a call to action on any kind of lead generation ad, certainly. And, the most important thing in your lead generation campaigns is that you're getting in front of the right audience, that you make sure that your ads actually and your other promotions actually are appearing in front of the people in the industry and the companies that you want to sell to. Because if you don't have that, you don't have anything. Second, most important is the offer. And it has to be something that's valuable enough and compelling enough that people will click on it and come to fill it out. And you're always dealing with very low percentages. If you have a click-through rate of 5 or 10%, that's a very good click-through rate. In a lot of industries, the click-through rates are 3% or something of that sort. And so, and then when they come to your landing page, usually a very small percentage will convert. Again, you might have 5% or less who convert when they get to your landing page. So if you think of, I've got a very small percentage who are clicking on this and a very small percentage who are converting, only a few drop out at the bottom of all of that, and they may or may not be actually looking to buy right now. They may just be interested in that white paper or that webinar, and they may not want to buy for 2 years. So you have to, when I've done ads, I found, for example, there would be an ad for a product, and it didn't have any call to action on it. So it got very few clicks. Just adding a button that said learn more increased the clicks by 10 times. So any call to action, even something as simple as learn more, can have a big impact. And then when they come to your landing page, you have to have that engineered and tested and optimized to get the maximum number of signups or downloads. But again, you don't necessarily know how that's going to work until you do it. I was working with a company. I give you 2 examples. So I was working with a company, and we were offering an ebook on best practices, and we had a 28% conversion rate when people came to the forum. So very high conversion rate, very good. And we said, well, can we do even better? Can we get it to 35 or 40%? So we looked at the form and we said, well, the form probably is too many words, too much going on.
Yeah.
We could probably even simplify the form, and I bet we'd get more conversions. We simplified the form, and it dropped to 0. I mean, literally, no one, all those signups just ended. So we went back to the other form, and it made no sense to us at all. But that's what the data showed. There was no arguing with it.
So weird.
It was totally weird. But I head up an organization in Boston, and we actually have things that are online, kind of nationally, called Sales and Marketing Innovators. So we do events mostly on the 3rd Thursday morning of the month. So we had an event this morning. And our guest, these are all these speakers or panels, and our guest was Jeremy Kornfeld, who is a top marketing executive. He's the North American CEO of Brain Labs, which is a global digital marketing agency. Before that, he was the CEO of iProspect, which was a very successful digital marketing agency. And so he was on talking, and he said, you never know what will work with creative until you do it. You may think you'll know, but you never will know until you put it out there. And he gave an example that they were working with a large car company, and they were doing digital ads for this car company. And they tried all sorts of different creative, different headlines, different copy, and so forth. And they discovered that the only thing that mattered, the only thing that would change how much people clicked, was the color of the car in the ad. And he thought, this was so depressing for the creative people, because they're like, we have all these great ideas. We write all this great copy. We have these great, concepts. And it turned out the only thing that changed it was the color of the car. And it wasn't even like the brightest color necessarily. Sometimes it was a subdued, kind of color. So anyway, so you never know until you do. I had a client who, B2B, and they were doing, they had a form on their site. They had a hardware product, and they had a form to sign up for a demo. And what you did when you signed up for the demo was you went to the calendar of the founder and you picked any open time you wanted for your demo. And you had the total choice of, what time did you want to have your demo? 1-to-1 with the founder. Nobody signed up. Literally in a year, not a single person signed up. So I looked at it and I said, well, maybe the problem is that it's a 1-to-1. This is going to be a sales call. It's not going to be a demo because you're 1-to-1 with the founder. It's a sales call. What if we do this? What if we say we're going to have a demo every Tuesday at 11 and every Thursday at 3. And if you want to be part of it, just sign up. And those are the only 2 times. And if those 2 times don't work for you, you could ask for a different time, but that's when we do our demos. In the first month, they got more than 20 people to sign up for demos because it no longer came off as a one-on-one sales call. Now it really was a demo. And so these things that, that you have to engineer and you have to test and you have to try, and you have to kind of be empathetic and put yourself in the shoes of the other person and think, well, how are they perceiving this? How are they thinking about this? What does this look like to them? Not just, oh, how can I sell? But, if I was on the other end, would I react to that positively? Would I want that? And if not, how could I change it so it's something that they would want? So it's a complicated thing. There's no simple rules.
Yeah, the era of lazy marketers is that, definitely. I have the question about your experience cooperating with big brands and small brands. For example, you mentioned that you need to create brand awareness. But for example, when small brands have awesome products, high quality products, their unique selling proposition, they need to compete with big brands. And I understand why it's complex. For example, I remember when my son told me we need to buy Nike. He didn't told me we need to buy sneakers. He told, I want a Nike. Let's go to Nike and buy the sneakers. And it's hard for small brands to compete with them because they spend billions, to create brand awareness. People trust them. They deserve this brand awareness, strong brand recognition. But in the end, we need to compete with them. Can you tell how to do it? For example, if we have unique selling proposition, high quality products, but our competitors, big brands like IBM, Nike, Amazon, any others, how to set up marketing message to get customers and tell, okay, we have our benefits if we cooperate with us?
Well, your body language actually is kind of showing what you do. You were like, so what you need to do, so like I said, I mentor startups at MIT and I work with small companies. And generally what they need to do is be very focused and very narrowly focused. And so if you might focus on just a geography or just one industry, because you're not, like you said, you're not going to have an IBM budget. You're not going to have a budget like Salesforce. And so you can't try to cover the entire universe of customers because you'll dilute what you're doing so thin that no one will notice anything. There is kind of a minimum effort or a critical mass you have to do to get people to notice you. So if I had a very limited budget, I wouldn't market nationwide. I would pick 5 cities, or I would pick just New England, or I would pick, just California, whatever made the most sense for that particular product. and particular industries, particular companies, particular titles in those companies. I would be very narrowly focused because I want them to see. So, for example, I've done multi-channel campaigns for companies where we were targeting 5,000 to 10,000 people in big companies, and we spent $5,000 or $6,000 a month on the media, on the advertising and other programs, and we got like 250,000 impressions for $5,000 or $6,000. That built a lot of awareness. I had the head of sales at the company. You had been a head of sales and marketing at other companies. He had been a CEO. He had a lot of experience. He didn't tell me this when he first came on, but he told me this 6 months later. He said, when I came on, I thought you were crazy. The things you were doing were like, oh, this isn't going to work. But I didn't say anything. And 3 months later, I had all these, people at these big companies saying, I'm seeing you guys everywhere. I figure I got to talk to you. But it's because I was very narrowly focused on just that 5,000 or 10,000 people. And I wasn't trying to reach everybody in the entire country, in every type of company.
Nice.
So,
love it. Yeah.
So that's first of all. Second of all, one of those advantages that brands have, that's a disadvantage for small companies, is that being a big brand amplifies your marketing. So, if you spend X dollars in your IBM or Salesforce, since people already know you, that amount of marketing has an even bigger impact than if a small company spent that amount of money. So the biggest multiplier of marketing is the size of the company, the market share of the company. But the second biggest multiplier is creativity. Because remember I said those brand ads had to have emotional messages. They had to be memorable. They had to connect with you and say more than, please download our ebook. And so the way that you can get, the way that you can compete is your unfair advantage is creativity. So they're not going to remember, I know you're going to hate to hear this, Anatoly, but they're probably not going to remember your unique selling proposition. But they're going to remember your creative, humorous ad.
Yeah.
That's well branded so that it has your name in it at least 2 or 3 times. And they see that enough times and they're like, okay, I keep seeing this. I should find out what these guys are about. Then they're going to start to remember your unique selling proposition, but they probably won't remember it from an ad. And in part because it's very rarely unique. Remember I told you about Scott Brinker's graphic where he shows like all the marketing tech companies and there's 10,000 of them. And in every category, there's dozens or hundreds. Well, they all copy each other. If anyone comes out with a new feature, all the others, will come out with it. There's not a great uniqueness between HubSpot and Act-On and, the 100 other CRMs and marketing automation programs. They all do similar things. Some are better than others, but they're all similar. So that's not what people will remember. That's something for the salespeople to talk about. The salespeople can talk to the customer and say, well, what's important to you? What's the most important feature? What are you really looking to do? Where are you now? What are you using now? Where do you want to be a year from now? Those are great sales questions. The role of marketing is to get the customer to remember you at all and that you sell a marketing automation program. And that 2 years from now, when they need a new marketing automation program, I better call up these guys because they seem kind of interesting.
Yeah, love it, Louis. Yeah, I love all your valuable insights. Tell our audience how they can reach out to you, learn more about you, follow you.
Well, I should have put my whole name in here. So I'm on Twitter and I'm on LinkedIn. So it's Louis Gudema, Gudema. And they can email me at lewisgudema@gmail. And like I said, I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn, so they can find me there as well.
Okay, guys, you can find all these links in the description below. Listen us on Apple, Google, Spotify. Thanks again for your time. A big pleasure. A lot of valuable insights. Guys, you need to follow Louis. You can see that marketing is huge, but if you have the right strategy, if you create brand awareness, then you can sell even if you have small brand awareness and grow in some time. Okay, guys, love you. See you.